Okay, we now want to talk about the characteristics of weeds. What I've been doing in the previous discussion is that I wanted you to find out where exactly we find weeds. I'm sure this is a simple question. We find the weeds where we grow crops in agricultural fields. But in terms of ecology, we can use the previous explanation to really locate the weeds, which is a complicated way of simply saying that we find weeds in agricultural fields. This is what I was trying to say. But using the ecological terms, things like CSR or the R and K things, still we are trying to understand the weeds. So what is a weed? Some people may call it an R species. Some people may call them ruderal plants, or some may call them competitive plants, depending on where they are coming from. It is, in a simplified way, a plant growing where it is not wanted. That is an agricultural view. So please do not, please note that there are many definitions of the term weed. Here I wanted to say not with a TE, or be aware that there are so many definitions. Probably the person who tried to pull together the traits or characteristics which we can expand on by giving examples is known as Becker. That was in 1975. He proposed ideal characteristics of weeds, or certain traits which enables us to distinguish the plants which we call weeds from the rest of the plants. The first thing which he talked about was the germination requirements. As far as weeds are concerned, they can germinate in many environments without specialization. So you find them in any environment. So the germination requirements are fulfilled in many environments. Such a plant with that trait should be a weed. The other characteristic is discontinuous germination, which is internally controlled, and great longevity of seed. What it means is that with this kind of germination, sometimes you just get a very small amount of seed germinating, and that's it. And if we have the seed in the soil, it can last for a long time. So there may not be any particular pattern in terms of its germination. Number 3, once the weed is germinated, there is rapid growth rate through vegetative phase to flowering. These plants grow rapidly It's one of the characteristic. The other one is continuous seed production, which is straightforward. Now, for as long as growing conditions permit, you can have production of seeds. There's also self-compatible, but not completely autogamous or apomictic. These weeds can self-fertilize. So you can start with a small population and you can have a lot of plants thereafter. So there's self-fertilization, that is what it means, of the flowering parts. But when cross-pollinated, you don't need the specialization, so you can have unspecialized visitors or wind causing pollination. But otherwise, weeds can do they can self-pollinate. In other words, if you do self-pollination, if you are talking of crops, you end up with pure lines, which produce lines which later they are used for crossbreeding to produce hybrids. With weeds, it happens naturally. They produce their own pure lines through number 5. And should cross-pollination take place, they also produce hybrids. So they are quite adapted. Very high seed output in favorable environmental circumstances. They are high yielders. They produce high yields in terms of seed production. They can produce seed across many environments, a wide range of environmental conditions. They are tolerant and plastic. We wish we could have such crop genotypes which can be produced in any environment, just like the weeds do. A wheat plant has adaptations to short and long distance dispersal. They can distribute seeds within short distance as well as long distances. Number 10, if perennial has vigorous vegetative, reproductive or regeneration from fragments. So they can reproduce from short pieces of parts of the weeds. If also perennial, they can easily break, that is brittleness. So they are not easily drawn from the ground. If you try to pull them, they just break and you leave several parts within the ground, which can always perpetuate the wheat. They have the ability to compete interspecifically by special means. It means these can actually be highly competitive because they can be rosette. That is, they spread out, choking the growth of other plants. They can also produce what are known as aderochemicals, which can kill also other plants. We will talk about it later. We'll also talk about competition later. So these 12, these 12 traits were proposed by Becker in 1975. In the following slides, probably will give details to some of these traits. Otherwise, this is just a summary of the characteristics of weeds. So on the characteristics of weeds, we are mainly focusing on weed seed production, which we say can be very high and it can be produced across many environments. There's also weed seed dormancy, which gives rise to seed longevity, the length of time the seed takes being alive within the soil. We may talk of also weed seed banks, which is also a characteristic of weeds. Periodicity of weed seedling emergence. This is the pattern of how weeds emerge from the soil. So let us look at the flowering and the seed production of annual weeds. Most weeds can set seeds without relying on pollinators. I mean, we highlighted this when we were talking about the characteristics of weeds. We were just expanding on it. Weeds exhibit inbreeding, autogamy, or self-fertilization. It's actually a characteristic which we have noted. Also outcrossing by wind or generalized flower visitors, which can cause formation of hybrids within these weed species. Inbreeding is also good for weeds. The ability to start a seed producing colony from a very single colonizing plant. This is why they are able to colonize highly disturbed areas. Abundant and continual seed production, it's also the part of the characteristics of these weeds. Seed production under a range of conditions, these are the weeds. They can produce seeds across various environments. We talked about high seed production. Let me admit somebody. You can see I'm just repeating what Becker suggested. High seed production could produce tens of thousands of seeds per plant, which you may refer to as weed seed rain. We may estimate weed seed production under field conditions using trapping caps, in cropping fields, which can be used to collect seed, identify seed, and you can count them. Let's say you wanted to see how weeds can produce these seeds, or you can collect weed seeds from individual weed species and count them. This is shamba grass, which can produce this kind of seeds. These are the seeds from shamba grass. Shamba grass can produce 580 to 9,850 seeds per plant. The botanical name for shamba grass is Rhodbolia cochinkinensis. This is a common weed in Zimbabwe. This is Biden's pilosa blackjack. It produces those elongated seeds with the barbs or with the hooks at the end, which tend to cling to animal skin or clothes if you are moving in a field of blackjack. The blackjack can produce 1,400 to 27,700 seeds per plant. Blackjack is Biden's pilosa. Here, the purpose of these numbers is just for you to appreciate that these weeds produce a lot of weed seeds, and probably this is why it is difficult to get rid of these weed species. The numbers are not for you to keep them in your heads. Elusini indica Rapoco grass. It looks like Rapoco, the crop from Rapoco. You can see those black seeds, and those are the protective shells. As for Rapoco grass, Elusini indica, it can produce per plant 10,700 to 137,000 seeds, which are quite a lot. Striga asiatica, this is actually in Gokwe. You can see this red flowered plant. The striga plant. These are the seeds. For these seeds, I mean, you cannot see them with a naked eye. Striga asiatica seed. You need a microscope. This is what you can see under a microscope. So seed production, you can have Striga asiatica producing 25,000 seeds per plant. Striga fabaceae about 58,000 seeds per plant. And seed longevity, how long the weed seeds can stay within the soil being alive. It's about 20 years for these seeds. So it is very difficult to get rid of them. So on this one, I will stop here.